Hello, I'm Ajit Jha, uh, CEO of Power Pixar channel. And today in the public global uh, uh, video podcast, we will basically concentrate on what I consider to be a very callous and irresponsible statement made by Larsen and Toubro chairman, Mr. S.N. Subramanyam, when he talked about the fact that one should work for 90 hours a week, including Sundays. He told his employees when they asked him, how long can we keep working for 6 hours a week, including Saturdays? He said, I work on Sundays. You should all work on Sundays, 90 hours a week. And then he made a very rather silly statement. He said, how long can you keep staring at your wife? And then I guess he also added, how long can women employees keep staring at their husbands? I thought that was a really silly and very, very callous statement. And it reflects a state of mind of what we would call slave drivers in the corporate world in India, which is perhaps the worst in the world. I mean, in Europe, corporates expect workers to work less than 40 hours. In many countries like France and others, 35 hours. In the US, about 45 hours. And then this gentleman suddenly asks his employees to work 90 hours per week. Similarly, some time ago, Narayan Murthy, a more respectable member of this corporate culture, he had also made a similar statement where he had asked his employees to work more than 70 hours, at least 70 hours a week. Now, why do I consider this, as I said, callous and irresponsible? Let's start with someone from the corporate world who has openly criticized this, and the person is no less than Anand Mahindra. He's known for leading the transforming, in fact, the Mahindra Group itself. And at the same time, he went to Harvard. He's got a lot of flair. He's on the social media quite often and comes out with very good suggestions. Anand Mahindra pointed out in response that what is more important is the quality of work, not the quantity of work. Not whether you work for 90 hours or 70 hours. You can't have a gun at the head of employees kind of assessing how many hours they are working, whether they are working 7 days a week or not. In fact, Anand Mahindra went ahead and made a joke. He said, look, I like staring at my wife. That's a nice sort of a humorous statement, and at the same time an attack on Mr. S.N. Subramanyam of the Lasso and Toubro chairman when he said that how long can you keep staring at one's wife? A lot of people would perhaps, including me, would like to stare at my wife longer than Mr. S.N. Subramanyam does. And at the same time, people have responsibilities. People don't come home just to goof off their time and, as S.N. Subramanyam mentioned, stare at their wives. They come to look after their kids. They come to look after their old parents. At times, take care of their siblings. At times, help with the children with their homework. Indian families have been criticized to be very patriarchal, where only women are working at home taking care of the children, and men are only sitting in corporate offices and either working or gossiping at the same time. So that needs to change. If you want to make India modern, you want to make it like Europe and America, where there has been a long sort of fight to reduce the work hours, which used to be crazy at one time. The unionization, the trade unions, the entire working class culture fought in, starting from 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, right? In fact, one can point out from the time of Magna Carta, Locke, for example, John Locke, the famous English philosopher, he was part of the levelers and diggers movement. And that movement and the working class movement after that fought for the reduction of working hours, because one of the standard arguments was that corporates basically make money, make profit by robbing people's uh, labor hours. They underpay people. People work for longer hours. They are underpaid at a pittance salary, and that is how corporates make money. Let's get back to Mr. Subramanyam. He's a chairman of Larsen and Toubro for 8 years. Last year, his salary was rupees 51.05 crore. That 51.05 crore in a poor country like India, although it's an annual salary, and some people might point out that in America, lots of CEOs are paid even higher amount. But if you take 51.05 crore salary in Larsen and Toubro, that is 534.57 times the median salary of a Larsen and Toubro employee, which is only at the median salary in Larsen and Toubro, remember, this is the corporate group, is only at 9.55 lakhs per annum, which is much, much lower than 1 lakh per month, right? It's almost like about 70, 80,000, which by corporate standards, I would not consider very high. So the chairman gets 534.57 times more. That is where corporates need to focus on, not whether workers should be working 90 hours a week, but the fact that a chairman is unfairly, unjustly getting 534.5 times that of the median salary of the group. This is perhaps one of the worst ever corporate cultures in the world. In fact, I remember in about 1970s, 1980s, a brilliant American economist who later on got the Nobel Prize, he worked on the fact that American corporate groups end up, business groups, corporate groups, those days they were not referred to as corporate groups, they make 8 times the profit of what an American corporate group gets, but they hardly ever invest in research and development, the skilling of workers, or the community. Tata's perhaps is the only exception to the rule in India. Most corporate groups hardly spend any money on the work life of their employees. The fact that their employees end up getting sort of decent bonuses, that they end up getting good education, the employees' children should be, put in excellent schools, their health and other benefits. Most corporates in India do not. They just sort of spend money on parties, again, where the elite vice presidents and directors and others come, where lots of stuff like money is wasted on alcohol and things of that sort at corporate expense. In fact, I myself have witnessed that as a journalist in several organizations, which I will not name at times, and I have complained about it. And this is the worst thing that is happening in our country, that the focus is not on how 1% of Indians make 40% of the total earnings. Just 1% people end up getting. That the massive inequality between the very rich, the corporates, and the rest of the country, the inequality is just earth-shattering. I think no country in the world, including the US, Europe, for that matter, even Middle East, where I worked for a decade, even other countries like China and others, which are considered dictatorships. I have worked in monarchies. I have never seen this kind of inequality and callousness on the part of corporate chieftains, chairmen, CEO, as I have seen in India. And I have worked in several companies, visited several companies, both here in the West, in the US, in England, in the Middle East. India is the worst case of all. And then after that, the Larsen and Toubro chairman, S.N. Subramanyam, has the temerity to make such a shoddy, callous statement that people should be working 90 hours a week. He perhaps doesn't know what is happening in informal sector. In informal sector, you can see it with your own eyes. Boys come in these motorbikes to give food to people. Sometimes they come in bicycles, and they work sort of much more than 90 hours a week. They work harder than any corporate CEO in this country, and they make a pittance. It's the same thing with farmers. They get up early morning, they work all 365 days in the year, and they get a pittance, not because their work is any less unethical. This is very unethical. Their work is as much to be valued as anyone else. Why would someone would argue then why do they make less returns? A farmer makes less returns from agriculture, let's say, than a corporate group. That is because the way things are monetized in this country. That is because we have an urban bias in this country. That is because we have a bias towards agriculture in this country. Even in the villages, for example, people make more money out of non-farm work, non-agricultural work than agricultural work. That's a shame. That again doesn't happen, for example, in America, in the US, in Japan, in China, in various developed countries. It's typical to India. And that is why we've had such farmer movements in this country, even during the lockdown. For example, we had a farmers movement surrounding the whole of Delhi, which lasted for more than 13 months. The reason is insensitive government, insensitive corporate groups, insensitive bureaucracy, and a nexus between these three, which is basically very insensitive, which ends up exploiting the majority of people and their connivance with ruling parties, with corrupt politicians. That is what is ruining the country. This attitude of the slave drivers that people should work for 90 hours a week, he talks as if that will improve the country. No, it will just lead to more and more profit rates by people like the Larsen and Toubro chairman, Mr. Subramanyam. Maybe his salary will go up, but not that of his employees. So this is something people should understand. It's a very arrogant elite culture which is insensitive to people's needs, to work-life balance, to the fact that people have so many responsibility other than work, and that even if they work themselves crazy, the salaries they get are a pittance. The uncertainty at the workplace, the fact that at one time, in fact, India is comparatively, compared to all the leading democracies of the world, has the least rate of unionization. And Europe has one of the highest rates of unionization. America, Japan, other countries in the world have much higher rates. When India had a higher rate, the unionized workers had certain claims. Now, given the fact that there is informalization of labor, people can just lose jobs at the drop of a hat, where they are not even given a reason why they lose their jobs. That kind of culture has led to total uncertainty at the workplace. One of the reasons why various sort of engineering colleges in the private sector that opened in the last, let's say, 15, 20 years have begun shutting down, not only engineering colleges, but management colleges, journalism and communication colleges, is because there are no jobs. there is massive unemployment, and the salaries, especially after post-COVID, is pathetic. In fact, people after studying for several years with good degrees enter the workplace, and the salary is as low as that of a domestic helper. It is this culture and the fact that corporate chieftains, corporate CEOs and chairmen are insensitive to that. Instead of focusing on that, reforming the workplace, democratizing the workplace, makes outlandish sort of callous statements that people should be working 90 hours per week. There are most Indians, majority Indians, work more than Mr. S.N. Subramanyam, but they do not make that kind of statement as if he's a slave driver. I think he should apologize to the nation, and Larsen and Toubro should not claim that, oh, that is why we are such a great organization. In fact, in another video, if this continues, this culture, one will point out how many times Larsen and Toubro has failed in delivering when they make tunnels, for example, in Gurgaon, and when the rains come and the whole thing is filled with, sloshed with water. That's a typical failure of Larsen and Toubro style of construction. So, the way he's going on as if he's perfect, his company is perfect, and that's not true. So I think that statement made by him, in fact, Deepika Padukone, the Hollywood actress, took him to task on that. Several other people have attacked him, and it is very important that in India we go about democratizing the workplace, democratizing corporate groups, rather than corporate groups talk as if they are sultan of some particular sort of Middle Eastern state of medieval times. Thank you very much. Please do subscribe so that we are able to make many more such meaningful videos. Thank you.